Danielle Colby finally talks about Frank Fritz, which is a big deal for fans of American Pickers. For years people have tried to guess why Frank left, and what Danielle is thinking. She's ready to talk now. What did Frank Fritz and Mike Wolfe do? Did Danielle decide which side to support? This isn't just talk without any point. This is her side of the story, told from her own thoughts and facts. Stay tuned because Danielle Colby is about to finally say what everyone has been thinking. You'll find out what's been going on with TV's best picking team behind the scenes. Let's start. Beginnings by the road. Danielle Colby wasn't always a TV star. When American Pickers first started in 2010, she was just a friend helping out. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz were the ones who hit the road to look for cool stuff in old barns. Danielle stayed in LeClaire, Iowa, and ran the store where they sold their finds, called Antique Archaeology. She answered the phone, looked for leads and made sure things kept going. Fans loved her right away, the fun vibe she gives off and the fact that she keeps things real. Danielle wasn't just there to look good though. She was the one who kept everything together. The show did really well because of Mike and Frank. They were friends for years because they both liked old stuff and grew up in Iowa. Danielle saw how well they got along. Mike always talked about saving history, because he had big plans. Frank was more quiet, and paid attention to small things, like how an old toy worked. Frank was interested in a motorbike part, and Mike wanted a rusty sign. Sometimes they would fight, but it was fun to watch. When they called Danielle from the road, they would joke about who won the day, which made her laugh. Even though she wasn't in the car, she liked being a part of their team. In the beginning things were easy. They would drive around in their white van and look through other people's things for gems. Danielle always made sure the shop was ready for what they brought back. She would hear about their trips and help them decide what to do with things like old signs or broken bikes. A lot of people came into the shop to ask her about Mike and Frank. Danielle knew things wouldn't stay easy for long, even though it was fun. Things were going wrong more and more as the show got bigger. She knew Mike and Frank pretty well. Mike was always moving forward with new ideas. He liked things to go more slowly, getting into the little things. Danielle was in the middle. She asked Mike about his plans, and went to check on Frank when he sounded tired. Their trust put in her, and she did the same. Even back then she could tell there were small signs of trouble. It felt like a small family. Frank would sometimes shut up and Mike would try too hard. That's all there is to it for now. Just hints of what might happen later. TV goes off. Danielle Colby was there when American Pickers turned into a huge hit. It began slowly. Mike had been filming things with a shaky camera for years to sell the idea. Getting dirty, he would drag Frank along and climb into old barns. Danielle came from the shop and helped them find leads. Networks said no over and over because they thought no one would watch two guys pick up trash. Mike wouldn't give up though. The History Channel took a chance in 2010, and the first show was seen by 3.1 million people. Danielle was shocked. Overnight, the store turned into a zoo. A lot of fans came to LeClaire to see where the magic happened. Danielle became well known all of a sudden. People who saw her on TV asked for pictures. She would smile, lead them around, and show them cool things like the old gas pump Mike found. It was crazy and fun. To keep up she had to hire more people. People were offering pictures, and friends were calling all the time to ask about Frank and Mike. Danielle liked how lively it was, but it was too much for her to handle. Mike and Frank were living their dream. They would call her from different places, excited about their hauls. It was Mike's thing to talk about a big glowing sign he found one time. Frank got an old fire extinguisher, and talked about it like he had won a prize. Danielle would laugh, write it down and get the shop ready for whatever they brought in. The show was no longer easy though. They were on the road for long hours, 250 days a year making movies. She could tell by the way they spoke. They were hurt, but they kept going. But fame hit each of them in different ways. Mike put his weight on it. It did very well after he opened a store in Nashville. A lot of people lined up to see him. It looked great to Danielle. He was leaving his mark. Frank didn't like being the center of attention. He kept his picking quiet, while he stayed in Illinois. "You're the quiet star, huh?" She'd tease him. He would grunt and change the subject. Danielle saw how they made each other stronger. Mike is loud, and Frank is calm. It worked on TV, and she kept things steady at home. She also has fans. A lot of people liked her style. There are tattoos, cool clothes, and a burlesque vibe. When she put pictures online, lots of people would comment on them. They'd tell you, "You're the coolest." Danielle really liked it. It was worth the long days. She would share little shop news, like a strange doll Frank found, and fans went crazy. But she saw that the show was changing. They were no longer the only ones picking. There were teams, ideas, and a lot of cash. It wasn't so much an adventure as it was a job. There was more and more talk. By 2015, shows were worth $250 million more than they were in the beginning. Danielle saw how much stress was building up. Frank just wanted to tell it like it was, while Mike wanted every find to be a hit. They would sometimes fight over small things, nothing major. Mike would say, "We need a big score." Frank would snap, "I'm not interested in your TV moment." Danielle stayed out of it and worked on the shop instead. She liked being the calm one that everyone knew they could count on. Danielle was proud of how crazy the ride was. A huge number of people watched the show every week. She would sometimes take a step back and be amazed at how far they had come. It was crazy, with TVs in every store and a small shop in Iowa. But she knew it couldn't last. Fame is tricky. It gives you a lot and takes away a lot too. She still didn't know what, but she knew something bad was about to happen. She just kept the shop running for now, ready for whatever came next, having trouble. By 2017, Danielle Colby could tell something wasn't right. Even though American Pickers was still a hit, there was trouble going on behind the scenes. She didn't go out and pick, but Mike and Frank told her everything. Now the show was huge. There are big teams, tight schedules, and a lot of money at stake. Mike was all in and thought it should be even bigger. He would call her from Nashville and talk about new things he had found and plans for the shop. Danielle liked how lively he was, but she could tell he was stressed. Everyone had to do more work because he wanted every show to be amazing. Frank was not like other people. He called less often, and when he did, he sounded tired. He had been sick with Crohn's disease. Danielle knew it hurt too much for him, and it was getting worse. He didn't talk about it much, but she would ask, "Are you okay out there?" He would say, "Yeah, I'm just tired," and then he would leave. She didn't try. He kept to himself like that. But the crew lied to her. Frank is missing days, and he looks bad on set. Danielle began to worry. He loved to pick, but his body couldn't keep up. She was busy at the shop. People still came and asked about Mike and Frank. "Where is Frank these days?" They would say. Danielle would just smile and say that he was out picking raspberries. She didn't want to spread gossip, but she knew something was wrong. Frank called less often, and Mike was busy. They were growing apart because of the show. Frank lost at one time. He called her from a shoot, because Mike said something that made him mad. He complained, "He's making this into a circus." Danielle did not take a side, and just heard. She said, "He's just excited." Frank sighed, and hung up. It wasn't her fight, so she didn't tell Mike, but it stuck with her. That kind of thing used to make them laugh, not fight. She wasn't sure if the show was worth it, if it messed them up and made a big split. She kept the shop open anyway, though as if everything were okay. Fans still didn't see what was wrong. The shows looked great. Mike and Frank were playing around and finding cool things. Danielle knew that the rough spots had been fixed. She would watch and think, that's not the whole story. She didn't say anything though. She liked where she was, running the shop and staying out of trouble. Mike would come over from time to time, full of ideas. Frank didn't show up very often. She missed the times when they used to get together and tell stories. It was clear that big things were going to happen by 2019. Frank's health was getting worse. The crew was in a hurry because he missed more shots. Mike didn't give up, but Danielle could tell he was mad. On the phone she could hear him sigh. "I wish Frank were here." She was lost for words. The show was now like a machine that wouldn't stop for anyone. Danielle could feel trouble coming on that she couldn't fix. She wished Mike and Frank could work it out before things got worse. The van stops moving. The wheels came off in March 2020, after his last American Pickers episode aired. Fritz was no longer on the show. Mike told Danielle Colby, He called her late one night in a low voice. He said Frank was done. Mike didn't have much to say when she asked why. He's not going to come back. Danielle didn't try too hard. She could tell he was upset, even though she knew it was going to happen. It hurt still. Frank had been a part of this from the beginning, with his silly laugh and love of finding strange things. It didn't feel right that the van was moving without him. After that, Frank split his side. He told his son that it had been 2 years since he had talked to Mike. He said, "My back hurts," and Mike didn't even call. Danielle didn't really believe that. She knew why Frank felt that way because she had seen Mike move chutes around while Frank was sick. He was in pain, and it's possible that he needed more than just the regular adjustments. She didn't call him to make sure. She didn't like that. She thought he'd get in touch if he needed to. He didn't. Fans went crazy. Why did Frank leave? They asked on the web, did Mike leave him? Danielle saw the posts, but didn't say anything. If people asked her about it, she would post pictures of old things to keep the shop open. She didn't want to side with anyone. Frank had been her friend too, and she hated that he was gone. Mike had always been her friend. She would text Mike and ask, "How's things going?" "We're handling it," he would say. Frank wasn't on her mind. It was too honest. The truth was a mess. Frank's Crohn's disease was getting worse. He went to the hospital 17 times in 2 years, and will go to rehab for alcoholism in 2020. The crew told Danielle about it. She did not think he was a mess. People do things when they are in pain. He was kidding about a fine that made her remember being excited. That guy was going away and it was awful. Mike kept shooting and adding new people. Danielle saw the shows. They were good but not the same. Even though he'd been grumpy lately, she missed Frank's vibe. She had to deal with her own chaos. The shop was still full of